India sees about 2 to 2.5 lakh IVF cycles in a year and has the potential to double the number of these cycles. IVF services may reach to $829.5 million by 2023 from $256 million in 2016 as a report by Allied Market Research. The concentration of IVF clinics is now burgeoning, even in Tier 1 and Tier 2 cities with so much scope. The panelists will discuss the role of insurance in the segment, how the insurance players are looking into the space. The cost of IVF procedure in India range from rupees 1 lakh to rupees 2.5 lakh. Penetration of insurance and its impact on payers, providers and patients will be deliberated upon in this panel.
Good morning, one and all. Welcome to our second panel for the day. It is on insurance, a very important one we are going to discuss. The experts today in the panel will deliberate on the growth prospects of insurance in IVF, the impact on payers, providers, and patients. For this, we have a stellar panelist amongst us to discuss. We have Dr. Neena Malhotra, Professor at All India Institute of Medical Science, New Delhi, and General Secretary, Indian Fertility Society, joining. Thanks a lot, ma'am, for joining in. We have Dr. Kaberi Banerjee, Medical Director, Advanced Fertility and Gynecology Center. Thanks a lot, Dr. Kaberi, for joining in. We have Dr. S Prakash Subbarayan, Managing Director, Star Health and Allied Insurance Co. Limited. Thanks a lot, Dr. Prakash, for joining in. And to moderate the session, we have none other than Dr. Jaideep Malhotra, the founder of Rainbow IVF. Thanks a lot for helping me with the flow of the discussion and coming in and moderating the very crucial session, ma'am. Over to you.
Thank you, Pratibha. Thank you so much. And thanks to ET for bringing up such a great topic for discussion, because this is something which really requires all our thought processes in place. And why do I say this is also very important? Because India has a big population, 1.3 billion, and 15% of subfertility in this population means that the numbers are humongous. And what is also very important for us to understand is that infertility per se is not an easy thing, neither to treat and nor to be treated for. And also the human relationships revolving around and the society plays a huge, huge role. So it could be very, very stressful, isolating, and most of all, what we are here for, financially distressing and burdensome for everyone, whether it is the provider or the beneficiary or people who are getting affected by. So I'm very, very privileged today that I have a very star panel as an IVF specialist, and you have been in practice for such a long time. How challenging it is to be a provider in this space?
Look, when it's a biological pregnancy, it is a pregnancy which has already happened. There's a baby there, which is going through the various stages, the various trimesters in the 9 month of pregnancy. So we know we are giving you're putting money on something which is right there. Here, if you talk an IVF, the procedure is long run. So somebody is expecting insurance on a potential baby or a potential fetus, which may or may not happen. So, there is a very big if there is a pregnancy versus there is a pregnancy. So, realistically and hypothetically, what are the variables? Because there are a whole lot of variables. And I know that there are 2-3 reasons why I think insurance is not falling in place. And I would put it that we don't have a registry in the country as of now. But that doesn't mean the countries which have registry have gone ahead and started giving insurance. No. At least in our side of the world, we don't still have a law. Well, the law is in place. It's rolled. It'll take time to roll and come down. And of course, as you rightly pointed, there are the results are predictable. What is the goal, the outcome? Are we looking at a pregnancy happening? And when we insure, perhaps maybe we could say, yeah, this IVF cycle went on to give us embryos, which are potential babies. Like Because many times the IVF cycle may culminate or end abruptly, where we say a cycle cancellation. The cycle is cancelled because you went and gave the drugs and went and did a procedure of an IVF, but there was no embryo came out. So if you go for an insurance, say for a cardiac surgery or for a transplant or for a knee replacement, there is predictability there. Here, probably that's the major reason where world over, if you look at insurances, there are very few countries which are actually, other than, of course, coming from the state, which are offering. And I think that's the very big reason. And of course, there is not only variations in the outcome, but variables in the protocols people are following. So like I can do an IVF at 60,000 in my part of my hospital, but that is 4 times the price if we go in the private. So there's no cap, there's no ceiling there. So I think there are a lot of sort of stop gaps before we think, but I'm sure if we kind of put our heads together, something should work out if we have a intention to insure these patients.
On the side of the patients, trying to fulfill their need and to give them the best success rates. But we also must realize that there is a huge pressure on the provider to give the success rate as quickly as possible with the least financial burden. And therefore, at least in the beginning of my practice, whenever the patients would come, the first question would not be what is your success rate. The first question would be how much do you charge? And then the patient would kind of ask a few questions and then go to a few more centers. And before deciding on which center to go, cost parameter is the biggest thing in IVF, because we know it is not successful in every attempt. We know there may be many parameters, and we as providers are under huge pressure to deliver quickly and efficiently. So I think this topic of insurance is a very important topic, and I'm sure we will figure out how it's going to help the patients as well as the providers.
Thinking from the patient's aspect also, today we have almost about 8 to 10 million IVF births all over the world. I mean, it's not really something which is experimental. It is well-established procedure. And in our country, when we are thinking, because in the world, I mean, there are many countries who are really covering it up. There are many countries who are providing free IVF treatment depending upon their populations. In our country, more than 30 million infertile couples are there. And I know that I was in the WHO's terminology group on infertility. We deliberated for 6 years, 6 long years to get infertility as a disease. Prakash, I want to bring you here. Now, as an insurance, you're the Star Insurance Company. The name is also Star, and the Star, as far as insurance cover, is really, provided by your company. What took you so long? Where was the hesitancy in providing an insurance cover for, ART procedures? And a lot of us are looking at that, insurance companies are only looking for profits, or maybe are they really ignorant, or, there is a sexism involved there, or women are not as important. What was the hesitancy about? Please tell us.
Actually, insurance companies, particularly health insurance companies in India, 90% of them are not making profit. Because the incidence of diseases are on the rise, and the payment to the hospital, there is no regulation. It is unlimited or unregulated. So currently today, health insurance companies are not making profit. That's number one. Number two, if a disease, as you are precisely mentioning, like infertility has to be covered, of course, insurance companies come under the ambit of Insurance Regulatory Development Authority of India, we call as IRDA. And IRDA clearly specifies that even a mental health should be considered as a disease, like any other physical ailment. So naturally, infertility has to be covered. I totally agree with you. But as a medical person, I understand the problems, the social and the psychological and apart from the physical problems. And it is not infertility. Most of these infertile people have some form of metabolic syndrome, and we need to address that. Otherwise, it is going to be a continuing financial liability for health insurer, because today they are infertile because of metabolic syndrome. Tomorrow they may become patients of diabetes, hypertension, or even endometrial CA. So naturally, it is our focus to identify them, treat them, and promote wellness in them. But the problem is there are two things insurance companies take into factor. One is the incidence of disease. If I am covering 100 women of reproductive age group, how many will come under infertility evaluation and treatment? And second is, what is going to be the average cost for evaluation or for a treatment like IUI, IVF, ICSI, and whatever sort of treatment. So there are two problems now. So the incidence is not regulated because there are a lot of centers who do an evaluation within 1 year of active reproductive life. Although 80% of natural chance of conceiving exists in first 1 year and 90% after 2 years, but still there are a lot of people going for evaluation at 6 months. And there are a lot of centers doing diagnostic laparoscopy. If you question them, they say it is therapeutic. In some form, they do a drilling and they call it as therapeutic. So what I'm trying to say, there should be a standard operating procedure for all infertility centers.
The issues which you may have, but the consensus which is deliberated by all the societies of our country, it's been published also, is definitely going to help.
That's very comforting, because if centers are going to follow nice guidelines, history guidelines, or the guidelines that you are trying to propagate, it is very good. See, insurance companies wanted some standard operating procedures. Insurance companies wanted a well-regulated sector, a comprehensive infertility center where there is a standard operating procedure being followed, common protocols, and also standardization of cost. And standardization of cost, madam, it is not going to help only the insured people, even the common uninsured people. Today, differential charges are a big concern for people suffering from infertility. I want to hear from you.
You have, these costs are very well regulated by all the insurance companies. Like, you have procedures and you say, okay, for this procedure in NABH accredited hospital, I'm going to pay this much. In another hospital. So, I mean, that can be very easily done. So that should not be an issue.
But when they charge over and above that from the patient or from our policy holders, that becomes a point of concern. So the society can lay down guidelines, can also fix the charges, and most important, can create a comprehensive audit system so that a center, when I want to see the center doing hundreds of IUI or IVF, I should know that what is the reason for doing that, what is their success rate, what are the indications for laparoscopy, and what is their evaluation protocol. If these things are maintained and a registry is kept by the centers and a comprehensive audit available, I think it will be very useful for the policyholder, for the patient, and for the insurers.
I was just thinking that now with the ART bill and the surrogacy bill, it's going to make Prakash's work much easier.
I think this ART law is really truly a silver lining for both the patients, the providers, I say yes, who are doing ethical practices, and definitely is a big attraction for the insurance companies. So at least there is an umbrella in which we are covered. That's something which the insurance company will give us. But obviously the insurance company has a big reason to get attracted to, because there's a defined law. On just not the infrastructure or the human resource that's involved. And with this law, there comes something called quality checks. So if there is a quality check, and this checklist agenda has to be followed at each step by the person who's providing the IVF, the lab, the clinic, or the bank, then I'm sure there is kind of a safety net which gives is provided to the insurance company. So they know that they are treading, or they are walking safe or treading safe water. So at least that's first thing.
In the UK, it is covered by the NHS, National Health Scheme. And different boroughs or different units have different coverages. So some cover 2 IUI and 1 IVF. Some go straight to IVF and cover 2 IVF. There is also private ART in the UK, but most of the patients would wait to finish their quota of the National Health Scheme. And with this, the success rate of IVF, if the ART treatment is covered and the patient knows that at least 2 to 3 cycles will be covered either with insurance or from state, the pressure on the patient and the provider is less, and the patient is willing to come for the multiple attempts which this treatment needs. So therefore, the overall success of treatment will also increase if ART is covered under insurance. So I have a comment to or a question to ask to Mr. Prakash. I definitely agree that we need monitoring and standardization. So just out of curiosity, I would like to know, like, for example, you have cholecystectomies, you have cesarean sections, you have so many procedures going on which are covered by the insurance. How do you decide that, they are under the audit and they are not being made beyond, a person does not need a cholecystectomy and etc. It's there throughout the medical field. Why ART especially have you been waiting so long for it to be standardized?
What we do as insurers, we know that a person diagnosed with gallstones can determine the time for an elective surgery. They can get it postponed by 6 months, 1 year, 2 years. So what we do, we bring them under standard exclusions. Somebody buys an insurance policy in 2022. First 2 years, we are not going to pay for laparoscopic cholecystectomy. Because having known that they have a gallstone and they are prone for cholecystitis, if they take an insurance cover and they pay for 2 years and then ask for a huge amount, it will be loss making for us, because health insurance is meant for protection. It is not an entitlement. A person having known that they are suffering from a disease should not buy health insurance. They should take a disease when they are otherwise healthy. So for this concept, number one, we include laparoscopic cholecystectomy under 2-year exclusion. And number two, when they come for a treatment, we ascertain that there is an indication. Is it an asymptomatic gallstone going in for a surgery? Or there is a true indication where there are ultrasonic evidence of cholecystitis, gallbladder wall thickening, fluid in the pouch of Douglas, and elevated leukocyte counts and all these things. Then we determine that there is an acute cholecystitis problem, or the gallstone is causing a pancreatitis. We immediately jump in and pay these people.
So I understand this now.
In infertility, these things are very difficult to prove.
So basically, the message for the public here is that yes, you should be looking at a comprehensive coverage, and I think not only for the public but also for the insurance companies, is a comprehensive coverage which should start early in life, maybe the day you get married, or maybe when you discover that, like, you have polycystic ovarian disease, even younger age group, or let's say endometriosis or something. So if we have a comprehensive coverage right in the beginning, then probably, especially for this group of patients who will require early ART treatment, will be possible. And plus it does help the insurance companies also to stay afloat.
I saw that bill, but it talks more about sperm donation, ovum donation, surrogacy, and it is not talking about the factors we are concerned about: the evaluation, the audit, and the cost, standardization of cost, and standard protocol for a person less than 35 years coming in for 1.5 years after marriage. What is the level of couple counseling that is happening? And
I think they for the registry, because the ART clinics will need to register themselves. So once they register themselves, there is going to be a number of prerequisites which will have to be in place before you get a registration. So all that is going to be in place. There is a huge area which needs fertility preservation, which will definitely save a lot of money, time, and give good results later on. So that's something which I would say, because if we are just stuck on counseling, how are we going to move forward? So what are your thoughts? Because this is something which we need to move very fast, because altruistic without insurance has no meaning.
See, so far infertility is totally not covered in insurance. But we as a first health insurance company, we want to introduce ART in the insurance cover, and we have done it for one of our policies. and we are in the pipeline to introduce for another major policy. So these products, we want young, healthy women of reproductive age group to buy these things when they are healthy. And after 3 years, if they find some difficulty, they can walk in. And according to the sum insured they have, we have created a sublimit. Since we find no standardization of cost in the hospitals, we have created a sublimit where somebody has an insurance policy with 10 lakh, then there is a sublimit up to 2 lakhs. So they can go to infertility center and utilize the 2 lakhs for their essential evaluation or for the necessary treatment. And when it comes to necessary treatment, today I have included IUI, IVF, ICSI, and TESA. But tomorrow, over a period of time, as you rightly pointed out, I should be introducing the cryopreservation, fertility preservation. Things have to happen in a phased manner. So as a medical person, I would like to say one important thing. Insurance, as you rightly say, in this platform, I want to declare that it has to come forward and cover ART, and it is a disease like any other physical disease, number one. Number two, that should be a common protocol which you people should help, because you are the prime people holding the in the country's interest. You should come forward with a common protocol. And third, hospital should maintain a proper registry, and there should be an audit. And because when insurance comes forward to pay, there will be a misuse. And the fourth important point, what I want to tell you, women of reproductive age group in India, I heard people talking that 10% to 15% may require some form of infertility care and treatment. If I am going to cover all the women population in India, I can factor this 10 to 12% and then prepare a policy where it will be viable for me in the long run. But what happens when I want to introduce infertility cover? It is those adverse risks, people at fear, people who already have a metabolic syndrome. They are the people who tend to take the policy. So out of my policy holders, it will not be the 10 to 15%. It will be much higher than that. That is when insurance, whenever they come forward to introduce something new, they face a huge loss. So we as medical people should come together and see that how we can make it viable. Because we from Star Health Insurance, we have introduced in cover for ART. But I only pray and wish that some of the regulations that we bring in should make these things viable so that tomorrow I can come forward to cover cryopreservation. And looking at me, other insurance companies, there are 30 plus insurance companies. Every one of them will start covering, and it will be like any of the fever or fracture that is covered under health insurance in the years to come.
The surrogates need to be insured. Now the impact is going to be on whom? The benefit, the intending, couples, and also the cost of IVF is definitely going to go up. So how are we going to absorb all those things?
When there will be a quality of both infrastructure, the material provided, the human resource, there is a very important aspect which this law covers is on the donors and the surrogates. So obviously when there is a donor cycle happening, who covers the donor? As of now, none. So if it becomes a mandate, yes, this is going to happen only if the insurance is covered. We know that 99 of the 100 donors shall not have complications if you do things ethically and under the law. But we know why this bill has come. The genesis of this, there were a lot of problems happening. There were complications which went under the carpet, never reported, many donors dying or the surrogates not getting compensations, complications in the surrogate pregnancy. And I think that has really gone, because we should not look at, I'm a doctor, so I should not look at things from my perspective. I have a holistic view where there is an individual who is offering her womb, or there's a lady who is giving her eggs for donation. Now, who is covering her? Nobody at the present law. I think if this comes, I'm sure this is not just big reason for the insurance companies to get attracted, but also for us also to understand, yes, we are giving in every individual the right that she deserves, because who knows who can get complicated, who may have problems. So I find this as a definite boon for and kind of putting people on checks, and of course a big way for the companies to look in for ensuring not just the patient who's wanting an IVF, but also certainly for the surrogates and the donors.
Yes.
How is it going to impact the practices?
The next thing about the donors is, yes, I mean, it's quite, fluid out there regarding the donor and the altruistic surrogate insurance. Who is going to start the insurance? When are we going to start it? What is the premium going to be? Who is going to pay the yearly premium? Where does the intended couple come in? How will it increase the cost of treatment? We've not figured that out. Insurance for the donor, it's a very wide and very fluid thing. We need to figure out when, how, what is the premium, how long, all those things we need to figure out. Also, when we talk of insurance, either we have the retail insurance or the corporate insurance, and now we have the EMI, where companies like other companies are coming and paying the whole amount, and the patient is paying small amount over the year. So things are coming up finally. And regarding Mr. Prakash's statement on standardization of cost, I think in our country, it's not, there is a difference, but it's not more than 10 to 15%, maximum maybe 20%. So I think the costs are fairly standardized. There's not a 90 percentile differences like for other treatment modalities.
The insurance cover comes as soon as possible because it's more than 10 years. I think with the economic times also, this is the third conclave discussion which we have done. And we still haven't reached anywhere.
No, I want to just, submit one thing here, madam. We from Star Health Insurance, we have one of our flagship product, Family Health Optima. 55% of our retail customers buy this product. And we have already included cover of ART in this product. But the cover begins 3 years after consecutive stay with us. So we have already introduced it 1 year before. And people who have bought that, after 2 years, they should be eligible for ART cover. And we are trying to come up with new products where compulsorily I'm introducing ART because I want to slowly see that insurance industry considers ART as a disease. So we have already introduced, and there is an insurance product which is available, but rather talking about premium calculation, because this is a very complex this thing, and premium is done according to the actual calculation. We will leave there about premium. Only thing is, madam, you are the helm of affair. Now you please tell me, there are 1,000+ infertility centers in India, and do we have a mechanism to ascertain that they follow the common protocol and ethics? Do they take anxiety of the public, particularly the anxious couples? So there should be some rationalization that should be done from your end. That will definitely help all insurance companies. You have to make this field of specialty more attractive for insurance companies to come and cover. And insurance companies are worried about misuse and abuse.
With the law coming up and ensuring that certain basic protocols will be formed with the state governing authority, the national governing authority, the registries coming in place, I'm sure the IRDA will also be interested in getting ART on board. So it's going at a different level altogether. So this anxiety of the insurance companies that where is the ethics and are we protected? Where is the abuse regarding the centers? That's going to go down many folds once this law comes. That's one very good thing about the law. Number one. Number two is, again, when we compare other health systems, for example, surgeries to ART, they have a direct outcome. You do the surgery and it's done. But in ART, it's not like that. Even in the best of best centers, there will be failures. And insurance companies need to be aware, I'm sure they are, and how much ever you may control or try to control the ethics and make it straightforward, you will have to pay cycle after cycle to get the patient pregnant. So more or less, I think what I feel is like any other. For example, fertility is not covered under insurance. And many times the patient may have a heavy fibroid which is bleeding, and we are doing a myomectomy because of the bleeding, and then the insurance agents do come and cross check whether it was because of the fertility and or whether it was because of the bleeding. I think we should be beyond that now. We are at that stage where an infertile couple with a fibroid needs the surgery. So I think I can address the anxiety of the insurance companies to a certain level, but at the end of the day, it's like any other procedures, and you will need to trust the organizations and the clinicians.
The whole situation is so fluid. We talk about the ethics and the abuse by the patients or maybe some hospitals. But similar is true for the various insurance companies. They also promise something and they do not deliver. So people have a little thought process there also, that what if it is not covered? And so maybe it could be something which can be developed in such a way, Prakash, that there is a risk sharing.
I have a question to ask to Mr. Prakash. So there are the patients buying insurances and the companies giving insurances for fertility or maternity cover. So, so are you talking about patients, retail insurance?
Yeah, there are two things. I got your point. There are two things in insurance, like, the employer paying for the employee and the individuals buying on their own a retail cover. In a retail cover, as I said, there is a 3 years waiting period before they can use these services. Whereas in an employer paying for an employee, it can be from day one. If there are some 10,000 employees working in an organization and the employer wants to cover all the 10,000 employees without any adverse selection, if they want to cover all of them, and if some of them require a infertility treatment, it can be covered. It should be covered. So under group policies, it can be covered from day one, and under retail policies, it has to be covered after a waiting period of 2 to 3 years as the policy defines.
Because you were using women need to be covered. 50% of the causes of infertility lie with men also. So exactly. The promotion has to be on both the sides. So it's not only that we are targeting only women population for the cover, it has to be men also. So whenever you are promoting these policies, it should be for both, because 50%
I agree with you. 40 to 60% are male causes, 40 to 60% female causes, 10 to 20% combined causes.
Yes.
We have understood all that, and whatever the evaluation for male infertility and any surgery for varicocele, all these things are also included in our infertility or subfertility cover. We have carved out all these things. We have studied these for 2 years. And we have applied for approval in 2020. We got the approval and we have implemented in 2021. Now it is 1 year since we have started covering ART. Only thing is, within next 2 years, the customers may start coming for insurance reimbursements. So before that, we only look forward to some common protocols and audits, so that as we have to look at two things happening parallelly. At one end, ethics and a transparent practice. At other end, insurance companies coming with a clear-cut policies and guidelines for their policyholders. If these two things can happen, I'm very certain it is going to happen in 2 years' time. And this will open the eyes of all insurers. And in the next 5 years, I can definitely say that infertility will be something like a fever or fracture or an accident that is going to be covered under health insurance.
If we say 30 million couples are subfertile, how many will actually need IVF? Right now, we just do about 3 lakh cycles. That's all. So, I mean, just understand that way. And there are many more who are liable and who may be thinking, okay, I might require, like, let's say the sperm counts are decreasing. Over the years, what we used to be taught, like 60 to 120 million is normal. Today, 15 million is normal. So now anybody who's hovering around 12 million will start thinking that, okay, I might need IVF in due course, and will take a policy much earlier. So we should be aggressively working towards it.
Concern, of course, to the politicians also, because the numbers are dwindling. And if we look at the vote bank, maybe another 20, 40 years, we would be like Japan and China. If you look at China and Japan, their TFRs are lesser than 1. And if you look at the recent way their governments are looking, Probably China is already rolling out, and it'll be probably in 2022. They are already the plan where they will be offering on on their health services free IVF, like it has happened in the Nordic countries, including Denmark and Norway, where TFRs have been very low, and that's the genesis of why they're offering. But having understood that, will that be funded from the state is a big question, considering the kind of health budget that goes from our country, and will that onus come on the private players? But I think there will certainly be, if we have somebody intelligently looking at or has a vision for the next 30, 40 years, I think that is a cause of concern. And who knows, this may be the reason to get, IVF cycles insured by the Ayushman Bharat. I said maybe just one cycle, and maybe move to even the private players in this whole game.
Is it really doable? First thing. And second important thing is that what should be covered? And the third important question is for how long? And another important thing is for add-ons. So there are a lot of these areas which need a lot of thoughts to be put in. And especially with now this ART bill, and plus, a word about public funding. How do we really go about it?
I've just put me in a situation where I was a person who was a CEO of XYZ health insurance, and I know people are buying my plan, but I have to have an understanding not on the procedures, but what are the risks that are involved with the patient who undergoes? Because I'm covering not just a procedure which looks like a daycare or an office procedure, but then there can be 1 in a 200 or one. So I think the risks that are involved with the complications have to have a lot of clarity if I'm sort of selling this insurance. And B, I know that whatever best, covering the entire IVF may not be possible by if I look from the perspective of an insurance company. So maybe I can say I provide this much amount of cover, irrespective of what amount you go. So I said, I will look at it like in Australia, they give up to $2,000, but we know that the IVF goes up to 5,000. So the person who's buying the insurance and the one who's selling the insurance have got clarity. Likewise, there are, I'm not talking of state fundings like the NHS, the National Health Services of the UK, or in Israel, where they're covering up to 2 to 3 cycles of IVF free of cost. So that side, I think we can say maybe Ayushman Bharat could be a kind of, vertical in our country where, yes, they could cover at least not 2, 3, maybe 1 IVF cycle, provided they fit into. But that's what I'm talking on the policy side. But if you're talking on the private side, we talk of insurances, I think it could be a model where in the US also, among the 50 states, if they're covering the investigations and the part which goes in to reach to the IVF stage, i.e. the workup, depending on whether it's a daycare or, so a lot of investigations, like not the blood test, but a lot of things like patients need hysteroscopy, some patients need preoperative surgeries. So they can be covered in the fertility, ambit. And also, I think up to a certain point, there can be a cap, not only in the ceiling on the pricing, but also up to this point in the procedure, because I know that a pregnancy may not happen. So this patient may come back again, that I have not had a baby in this first cycle. So you still cover me till I go to a second or third cycle. Now the if I am the one who's selling this insurance, I'll be ripped off, because the patient may want me to pay for even the 6th, 7th, 8th, and who knows, till the 9th cycle. So I think these are a few things which I think both sides, the one who's taking the insurance, of course, will definitely want the best come out. But the one who's giving them the cover will have a lot of issues. And I think these are things, and of course, on the fact that if suppose there is a pregnancy, which can happen, that means the first IVF cycle is a success story. Will they be, because there's somebody who's interested in another baby? So that all things is the number of, so once a baby there, no insurance cover to be given, or she's reached an embryos, embryos are formed from the cycle. Beyond that, no cover, because the frozen embryo cycle, again, after your surplus embryos, you thaw them, you go in for it. Will they cover that? So all those, procedural things will always be in play, but so those things need to be defined from the one who's providing the insurance.
All types of infertility treatment should be covered, but it cannot happen all of a sudden. It should happen in a phased manner. So let us look into common areas of treatment and basic investigations to be covered first. then let us add on all that, fertility preservation, sperm freezing, ovum freezing, and all that. So I would rather prefer that for this to be sustainable. It is not that two insurance companies start covering artificial reproduction technique and then they run into a big loss. Then for next 10 years, nobody will venture into this. So it has to be well studied, well calculated, and then it has to be made sustainable.
There are plenty of studies which prove that people who are waiting for ART procedures to happen, a good percentage of them conceive during the waiting period in NHS itself. So once they have a backup insurance plan in place, many of them will not really utilize ART services because sometimes, what?
You're right. Mentally, they are free when there's a backup. And
exactly.
That results in spontaneous delivery also.
Exactly. Yeah. And we could also probably link it up with the maternity services. So I think, this discussion has given us a lot of food for thought. And I'm sure because after 6 months, when the regulatory processes are in place, I am absolutely sure that it is not going to be very easy for us as providers or patients as beneficiaries to get an ART procedure done without an insurance plan in place. So I'm giving you only 6 months, Prakash. Come out with a good plan and let us, see that there are a lot of beneficiaries for at both ends, at all the three ends, your end also.
Exactly. This discussion definitely is a very, 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 very positive brainstorming. And I'm willing to offer all my best support to see that ART is covered not only by Star Health Insurance, but by the whole industry in the years to come.
Yeah. So I'd like to thank each and every one of you for, a wonderful discussion, because as we understand today, in spite of so many decades of ART procedures and millions of infertile couples all over the world, this is an area which really needs our true attention, because it starts at a very young age and the pain persists for a lifetime. So if anything which we can do to alleviate this pain for these young, wonderful couples who are, suffering from subfertility, that is something which probably is the best thing we will be able to do. So I'd really like to thank each and every one of you for being in this wonderful discussion, and also to Economic Times for giving us the opportunity to discuss. Thank you very much.
Thank you everyone for such a detailed and informative discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, use the hashtag #ETFertilityConclave in all your social media posts. Let's spread this knowledge across the globe. Let everyone benefit from this knowledge.